Welcome back to another class on the voice of Torah. We are in Parsha Bereshit, in Perek Aleph, pasuk Aleph, in the middle of Rashi, in Ot Aleph. In the previous class, we started discussing the idea that maybe when the Torah wrote the word Bereshit, Bara Elokim et Hashem ha'aretz, maybe we needed to add the word Hakol, like it was explained in the previous class. So if I'm going to add the word Hakol, then it comes out that the first thing that was created in the beginning of creation were the heavens and the earth. This is what we wanted to pose this as a question in the previous class. However, today Rashi is going to go and he's going to attack this whole notion that the word Hakol has to be included in the verse of Bereshit, Bara Elokim, etc. Comes Rashi says, Ulam, however, Im tefareshken, if you're going to go ahead and if you're going to explain so like this, that when the Torah said Bereshit bara, it really meant to say that you have to read it like this, Bereshit hakol, bara elokim et Hashem et ha'aretz. That in the beginning of everything, Hashem created the heavens and the earth. If that is the way you want to go ahead and learn this verse, because remember, if I'm learning the word hakol has to be instituted in the verse of Bereshit, then automatically this verse is teaching me the creation of the world. But the way we were seeing it up to now from Rashi, that this verse is not teaching me the creation of the world. So that's why comes Rashi and he says, even if you want to come and tell me that since you have sometimes verses in Tanakh where HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he shortened them and he took out a word from the verse because it's self-understood on who it's going on, like we saw 4 cases in the previous class. So if that is the case there, so maybe it's the same case over here in the pasuk of Bereshit Bara Elokim. Nevertheless, Rashi is going to come now and he's going to attack this whole notion that the word Hakol cannot be over here. Rashi is going to tell you have to take out the word Hakol. You're going to have to read it the way he said it. Bereshit vero Elokim et Hashem et ha'aretz. That in the beginning of Hashem's creation of the heaven and the earth, etc., Hashem created light. So what was the first thing that was created in the beginning of creation of the heaven and the earth? It was light. All right, let's see this now, Be'ezrat Hashem. So Rashi begins. Ulam, however, im tefareshken, if you're going to go ahead and you're going to explain so, that the word Hakol has to be included into the verse. Tema al atzmecha, you should be amazed on yourself, meaning, yesh lecha lachshod, you should ask a question. Harei lo yitaken sheshamayim va'aretz nivreu bereshit hakol v'hayu hanivrim harishonim. It's impossible to say that the heaven and the earth were created in the beginning of everything and they were the first creations. Why can't I say that? Because the water preceded them in the creation. If the water preceded them in the creation, how in the world can I use the word Hakol and to tell me that the heavens and the earth were the first creation? What is Rashi's proof? Rashi says, Sharei kitiv lahalan bepasuk bet, because it's written later on in verse 2, Veruach Elohim merachevet al penei hamayim, and the Spirit of God was hovering on the face of the water. Rashi asks an obvious question. Ve'ech yaskira katuv et mitziut hamayim, how can the verse mention the reality of water? Va'adayin lo gilah hamikra bri'at hamayim matai hayta, and still where the verse did not reveal to us the creation of the water when it was. Ve'af lo hiskir et etzem briatam, and it even didn't mention its creation of water. It doesn't speak about in the Torah the creation of water. Ubema nishtanu mish'ar hanivrim, and how is water different than other creations? Shipiresh hakatuv et briatam, that the pasuk, it actually explained, it specified the creation. So rather from this you learn that the waters, they preceded in their creation to the creation of the land. When the verse speaks about the time of creating things in the creation, it only starts speaking about these that were created from the time of the heaven and the earth and on. That's what it specifies, but not what was prior to creating of the world. All Rashi is telling us is right now is like this. I can't say that I should go and learn the pasuk Bereshit Hakol. That I cannot say. Why can't I say that? Because in the second pasuk it says V'ruach Elokim merachefet al pnei hamayim. Where did water come from? The Torah does not speak about the creation of water and when it was created. So where did water come from? We know it was created, but where did water come from? Rashi is telling us that what did the Torah specify? Things that were created from heaven and earth and on. That's what it would specify. But things that were prior to heaven and earth, the Torah never specified. Yeah, Hashem created it, but it was not written down in the Torah. So if that is the case, what was created prior to heaven and earth? Water. If water is created to prior heaven and earth, how in the world can I tell you that the first thing that Hashem ever created was the heaven and the earth? It cannot be. Because prior to them I had water. And not only that, and furthermore, Muchach, it's proven, Shebriyat Hamayim kadma lebriyat shamayim va'aretz. And I'm going to prove to you, he says, that the creation of the water preceded the creation of the heaven and the earth. Why? Sharei hashamayim atzmam me'esh u'mayim nivru. Because shamayim, the heavens itself, they were created from fire and water. In order to make the heavens, Hashem needed to use water and fire, and then He made the heavens. Like we see later on in verse 8. If so, if I need water and fire to make the heaven, how is it possible that the heaven was prior to water? How's it possible? So we see here just the other way around. That water had to be already in existence. Hashem had to create water before He created the Shamayim. So we see from over here that this verse is not coming to teach you the order of the creation. So we have already number 2. So we have number 1, we said the first attack was Hamayim kadmu libriyat shamayim va'aretz, that the water preceded the creation of the heaven and the earth. What is the proof? Because it says in the verse 2, and the Ruach Elokim merachefet al pnei hamayim, that the Spirit of God was hovering on the face of the earth. One second, but how come He didn't tell us about the creation of the water? So Rashi said, from the time once heaven and earth were created, from then and on, HaKadosh Baruch Hu specified in the Torah the creations. But prior to them, it did not specify. So we see clearly that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did create the water. It's just He didn't bring it down in the Torah. Prior to the heaven and earth, there were other things that were created, but it was not recorded. So we see from over here that if you had other things that were created, like water in this case, created prior to heaven and earth, you can't tell me that this verse is coming to teach me the order of creation. That is the first attack. Attack number 2, Shamayim is from Esh and Mayim, from fire and water. I don't get it. If the Shamayim is from Esh and Mayim, how can heaven be created before water? If water is needed for heaven. So if water is needed for heaven, you have to say that the water was created before the Shamayim and the Aretz. Comes Rashi says, he finishes the sentence and he says, if so, if the Esh and Mayim is needed for Shamayim, how is it possible that the Shamayim was created before the Mayim? It cannot be. And since it cannot be possible that the heavens and the earth were created first, al korchach, we are forced to learn. This verse is not coming to teach you what was created prior and what was created later. To come to tell you who preceded who in the creation of the world. No. Rather, the first verse in the Torah and the verse after it, they continue after the creation of the light, like we explained in the first creation. Like we explained in the first part when we start speaking about, when it said in the Torah, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'ha'aretz, it doesn't mean to tell you here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created first the heavens and the earth. Rather, it's trying to tell you, Bereshit v'ro. In the beginning of Hashem creating the heavens and the earth, when the earth was chaos, etc., what was the first thing HaKadosh Baruch Hu did in the beginning of the creation of the heaven and the earth? What is it the pasuk says? Vayomer Elokim ye'or vahi or. Hashem said, let there be light, and there was light. And that's what he's telling us over here. That this pasuk of Bereshit bara Elokim the Aretz, and also the second pasuk va'aretz hayta tov v'choshech al pnei hamayim v'choshech al pnei tehom v'ruch Elokim merachevet al pnei hamayim. It's really coming after the pasuk of Vayomer Elokim ye'or vahi or. Bottom line, Rabotai, to make it simple, when it says in the Torah Bereshit bara Elokim, is not teaching us the creation. It's not teaching us the order of the creation of the world. That is not teaching us. That's all Rashi is coming down to prove over here. Now, Rabotai, I did this with the bi'ur. Now, let's go into Rashi. Let's see this word in Rashi itself. Because remember, like we explained in the previous classes, in the introduction of the first class, that we always first going to do the bi'ur Bezrat Hashem B'Neder, get a better understanding of Rashi, like the in-depth analysis, and then we're going to go and see Rashi himself. And look, when you do it like this, and now you're going to go ahead and learn the Rashi, look how simple it is. So Rashi is going to tell us, first Rashi is going to tell us the previous class, that we should add the word Hakol. And then he's going to tell us today's class, which is the second portion of Rashi, where he's going to attack this and we're going to have to remove it. So Rashi says like this, V'im tomar, and if you're going to say, V'im tomar, if you're going to say, Lehorod ba, it comes to teach us, She'elu tichilu nivru, that this pasuk comes to teach us of Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz, comes to teach us that the heavens and the earth were first created. Uperusho, and this is how you're gonna and this is how you have to see the explanation. Bereshit hakol, the beginning of all. Bara elu, Hashem went ahead and He created these, the heaven and the earth. How can that be? How is it possible that the Torah skipped out a whole word of hakol? Says, don't worry about it. You have verses where they shorten their expression and they minimize, they exclude one word. For example, we saw it in the previous class. That was case number 1. It didn't explain who's the one who closes the wound of a woman, where we said that it was Hashem, but it didn't need to explain it because it's self-understood. For example, they're going to carry the asses, the wealth of Damascus, and it didn't say it didn't say who's going to carry it. But we know over there it was the Melech Ashur, his servants, meaning his soldiers. And similar and like, if you're going to plow with cattle, it didn't tell you if a person is going to plow with cattle, because it's self-understood. And same thing, another verse. Hashem is going to say that, He's going to say in the beginning what's already going to be in the end. And didn't tell you, it didn't say that Hashem is going to tell you from the beginning of the thing till the end of the thing. We explained all of this in the previous class. So from here we see clearly that really maybe the word Hakol has to be included in the verse. When it says Bereshit bara, don't read it like that. Read it Bereshit Hakol, that in the beginning of all, in the beginning of everything, before Hashem even did anything, bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz, Hashem first created the heavens and the earth. You're going to be bothered by the word Hakol. Why am I instituting it? Why am I putting it in if it's not in the Torah? Don't worry, there are 4 verses that we saw in Rashi that clearly show you that a lot of times HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Tanakh, He shortens the expression and He takes out the word. Why? Because it's self-understood. Over here also it's self-understood. Nevertheless comes Rashi, and Rashi is going to knock this out now. This is today's class. He said like this, if so that this is true what you want to tell me, that the word Hakol has to be included, you should be amazed at yourself. Because the water preceded the heaven and the earth. Because it's written in pasuk bet, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the water. And the Torah still did not reveal to us the verse, the creation of the water, when it was. It didn't speak about it. So if it didn't speak about it, so you learn from here that the water preceded the earth. And furthermore, the shamayim, they were created from fire and water. Al korchach, Rashi says, so therefore you're forced to say, This verse is not coming to teach us what came first and what came later.